Gotta
ladies.
love that intro, man.
Oh, dude, me and my wife have been arguing, and I'm glad you said that right off the rip, man. I hope she sees that. She loves it. She loves the intro, but she keeps telling me, "You're losing people during it. It's too long. I need feedback, guys." Like, I'm like, no, like that's not too long,
No,
because the whole time
I
I'm just
think
like,
it's just right.
okay,
I
just
think it's
right
just
from
right. Yeah.
Lucifer. I need. Let's get. Now I trust this man because I feel the same way. Uh, so my wife's on TikTok and she does like a lot of graphic art stuff, and
Okay,
she's a
cool.
graphic artist. And on there, I would agree.
Yeah.
TikTok is a whole new like beast. It's
Yeah.
like the
Oh,
ADD fueling machine.
yeah.
People don't come
Hot.
to a podcast to like quickly go through things.
No, they want to take their time. They want to dive in deep. They want to be eased into stuff. With TikTok, it's all ADHD. Chop, 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 edit, 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 edit.
Yeah, dude. Yes. It's a monster. Well, man, I'm so glad to have you here on what's becoming late afternoon here and nighttime for you
Yeah.
across the pond, man. Where are you, and what's your name? What do you do, brother?
I come from Bournemouth in the UK, and if you want to know where that is on the map, what you do is you go straight to the middle, you go straight down to the coast. The asshole of the UK is exactly where I'm sat, so it's as simple as that. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Lucifer Storm. I'm an award-winning graphic novelist. I was born, raised, lived here in the UK all my life, and I've got plenty of stories to tell. Some of them possibly not legal, but we'll worry about that later on.
I told my wife once I got a better feel of what you did and how you did it and what your content's about, man. Like there may be like a huge fan brewing in the household here because my wife loves all the gritty murder type stuff, like the macabre, right?
Oh,
She's
fantastic.
Yeah, dude. I do too, but I think she's like a super fan.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent. That's what I like to hear.
absolutely. You got a guitar behind you that's an electric acoustic.
Yeah, an electroacoustic. This is a Lindo Neptune, which is I've had this for a few years now. It needs the strings changing soon, but it's pretty much in tune because every now and then I play murder folk. That's a genre of music, not a request. Okay, so I've got to be careful what I say around that one. But yeah, every now and then, like I do like little shows, little gigs, little open mic nights, just me and the acoustic. And it's a really hard genre to explain because like I've grown up loving metal all my life, right? And murder folk, it's very much what it sounds like. It's folk music, but it's very, very dark. Like a lot of the songs, they have gallows humor in it. Some of them are love songs told through the eyes of a serial killer and things like that. There's loads of real dark stuff going on in there. So it's kind of like metal, but taken to the acoustic.
So what is it about the macabre? Is it that it's supposed to be not liked? Is it the taboo? Is it we're just curious as humans? What is it about that subject that just takes a lot of us down the rabbit hole, just loving it?
That's a really good question. I think there's still a lizard part of our brain, like somewhere near the back,
Primal,
from yeah, primal. From all those times, I mean, like think about like the Roman gladiators and the stuff that they used to have going on in the Colosseums and stuff, and we used to enjoy that for entertainment. Think about some of the TV shows that are out there now. I mean, like on Amazon Prime, you got things like The Boys, and like how graphic and violent is that show, but it's so entertaining.
Yeah.
So I think there's that little part of us that's primal that really taps into that and goes, oh, I want to know more. But I think there's also a kind of survival instinct there as well, because we want to look for the warning signs, especially when we're looking at stuff that's like the true crime stuff, like with Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer. We look at those people and go, but they seem so nice.
Yeah, dude. Yes.
And it's that understanding. Like I think in today's day and age, we find it harder to understand how someone can be nice but also do some really fucking awful things at the same time. So we're intrigued because we want to understand it. We're very quick to turn around and go, well, that guy's a monster, that guy's a monster, that guy's a monster. And then we see a different side of them, even if it's for a split second. We're like, is that real? Is that fantasy? Is that a mask that we're wearing? And we just don't know, because the human psyche is so complex.
Oh, yeah, it truly is. And you hit some good points. Like, Jeffrey Dahmer knew personally he could not be a citizen in typical a city. He will kill people and do terrible things. He said that. I seen it in an interview. Like, I should be here. It's like, you're a logical serial killer. This doesn't add up. Like, you're smart, which that's not really part of it, I don't think. Very intelligent guy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think a lot of them were very intelligent. The most notable one is Edmund Kemper, who's still alive. He's still in prison, but it's well known that his IQ is just off the charts. Yet the horrible shit he did, decapitating his mother and stuff like that, it's absolutely crazy. But that
he's
part
the monster, right? The monster guy, like, huge.
Oh yeah, he's like almost 7 foot tall or something, man. That guy's a fucking behemoth. You know?
So often, when I'm walking in like not a lot. I'm 6'5", and I don't get a lot of people that are taller than me. Look, people 7 feet, dude, is tall, man.
Yeah,
like, that is massive.
Absolutely. I wouldn't want to meet him down a dark alleyway. Not for love nor fucking money. You know?
Right, dude.
But I think some of it also comes from we're seeing how other people respond to trauma and when they respond to trauma. Because resilience is something that we all have inside of us, but it's all different for each one of us, you know, and we don't get to choose whether we've got a long fuse or a short fuse when it comes to our anger and how we deal with things. So it's fascinating when we've been in similar situations and gone, oh, well, hold on. Like, that didn't bother me, you know. It did at the time, but a couple of weeks later I was over it, and you know, that was it. But someone else goes through the same thing and they end up killing. How does that happen?
I feel like some people, and when I say some people, I'm speaking from my personal point of view. It's like, I see some of myself in some of the worst people, you know, imaginable, doing terrible things, which truly are terrible. It's like, so it makes a human stop and think like, well, that's not too dissimilar from my past, or I had a similar job, and oh, that guy, I've never heard him say a word. He's always been in church. And then to find that out, it's almost hard to believe, no matter what the evidence is. Some of these people's lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's why there's a huge fascination with serial killers and true crime at the moment, is because I think a lot of people, they see a part of themselves in those killers, in those murderers, and they go, shit, could that be me? Where did he go wrong? Where did he turn right and I turn left? Kind of thing. We just want to understand. We want to get all the information. And like I said, part of it is to make sure that we don't go down that same path. You know, we want some sort of warning sign that we can look for, but it's also to protect ourselves, because I'm sure I'm not going to speak for everyone on the planet, obviously, but I'm sure that most people can relate when I say we've all had a friend or a partner that we've dated at some point who we thought was the salt of the earth. And then after a little while, we start seeing the real them and we go, oh shit. We need to get the fuck out of here and make sure this never happens again. But yet it does. It happens again. And you're like, why does this keep fucking happening?
Dude, you and me, I can tell already that we have pretty similar thinking and interests. We could go down a rabbit hole for probably 12 hours and not even know it.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
It's so fun, man. So what I'm going to do is I'll start out. I always I changed it for a little bit, but I went back to this kind of format of questioning because I really think that it paints the best picture. So tell us about, I've tried to word it different. When you found that your love for, with graphic novels, it's different. This question's a little hard. Was it art in the visual form? Was it art as far as the written word? What was first? Were they together? And when did that happen?
I've always liked the written word, and I love graphic novels and comics. I do also love prose novels as well. But I think where it all really stems from is when I was a kid. I was born the youngest of 4 children, and my eldest sibling was severely mentally handicapped. I had a dad who was a workaholic. My other parent has narcissistic personality disorder. So it was a very, very tough childhood. And I wasn't allowed to experience a lot of things that most kids my age were allowed to experience. I was kind of wrapped up in cotton wool almost. And one day, I was out shopping with my parents. I was only about 5, 6 years old. And all the TVs were on in the TV section of like the Walmart or whatever. And Doctor Who was airing. And it was the first time I had ever seen anything like it because I wasn't allowed to see that shit. Okay. And it was, this is about 1988, 1989 that this happened. And I just remember seeing Sylvester McCoy being chased by a Dalek up the stairs. And I was like, I need more of this in my life 5 minutes ago. I need it now. And of course, like that grew like a very special bond for me, a very special love. And I discovered that as time went on, as I learned more about Doctor Who, that there were these episodes that were missing. And the only way you could really experience them is if you picked up the novelizations of them. So I started picking up the novelizations of them. And I didn't have the greatest reading skills at that point, but I still loved owning them. I still loved giving it a go. It would take me like forever and a day to read just one of them. And they weren't exactly thick books. They're only like 80 pages each. And then a time came shortly after that where I was off school for a little while. I wasn't well. And I remember seeing kids at school. They would be off for a little bit because they were sick, and they would come back and go, hey, I got this like get well soon present from my parents. I got this action figure and this action figure. And I used to think, hold on, I never get anything like that. What the hell's going on? So this one time that I was ill, I said to my parents, like, why don't I get well soon gifts? And they didn't really have an answer. And my father, he used to go out every morning, same time, to pick up the newspapers. And he comes back one day whilst I'm off school sick, and he just goes, here you go. And just like, there's a couple of comic books just laid there in front of me. I'm like, okay, let's take a look. And it was stuff that I'd seen clips of on the TV. I'd seen like this old black and white Batman serial from like the 1940s or something. So I then see Batman on this comic book, and I see Spider-Man and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, what's this? And I started digging into that. And then when I had like my allowance and stuff, I'd go out and I'd explore things like in the local newsagents, like 2000 AD, because we didn't really have like comic book stores here when I was a kid. Like we had a few, but they were more sort of like towards London and stuff. And, if I want to get to London, I've got to get on the train for a couple of hours. And when you're about 6, 7 years old, that ain't happening for love nor money. So yeah, I don't know where he found them. I don't know what place was selling them. But when you went into like the local news agents, they didn't have the American comic books. All they really had was the Beano, the Dandy, which were like for really young kids. And 2000 AD, which was a British publication that started back in the 70s. That's where Judge Dredd comes from, Strontium Dog, all that stuff. And like, it was for kids around my age, but at the same time, it was quite mature. It was quite adult. And it was like, 50 cents ago. So like I would trot down there every week and be like, there's my money. I'll get some candy as well. And sit at home and like look through these books and like watch a bit of TV and stuff, because like I was one of those kids, like, I don't know what it was. When I was at school, I didn't really have many friends. I didn't know how to make friends. When I got out of school, the tables turned completely. And I had no idea how, why, or anything like that. So leading up to that point, I did a lot of reading of comics. And when I got into like my teenage years, that's when we started getting comic book shops. And there was one called Wonderworld. And one of the things that attracted me to it was I went in there and it seemed really weird. It was dark, it was dingy, it was dusty. There was all this weird shit all over the place, not just comic books. They had things like BB guns and all sorts of weird stuff from Japan. And they had all these bootleg VHS tapes. And they even had these little audio cassette tapes that had the soundtrack to some of the missing Doctor Who episodes. And I was like, oh, I'm in. I will give you some money for that, definitely. And like, that's where I discovered things like Spawn and Hellboy. And at the time, I just thought comics were superheroes. And I was just starting to get into horror at that time, because we had this little like mom and pop video rental place called Flicks.
I miss it.
Oh man, so do I, man. I miss it so much. I used to love going in there as a kid. And if you went in there with your parents, you'd start seeing all the artwork to all the horror VHS, and you'd start leering towards it, and your parents would be like, no, get the fuck back over here. You're not allowed to look at that stuff. But yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. And I remember I saw this one VHS tape for this movie, and the artwork just captured me. And like over here, the ratings for movies are U, PG, 15, and 18. So this one was rated 15, which meant you had to be 15 years old or older to be able to legally watch it. And I was about 8 years old, and I knew my parents wouldn't let me. And I was like, hold on. I've got a cunning plan. So I grabbed this tape and like I went up to them and was like, can I rent this one? They were like, no, it's a 15. You're 8 years old. And I just went, but I saw it on TV the other day. Complete lie. It was a complete fucking lie. But they bought it. Yes. And I was like, come on.
Win.
And I took the Monster Squad home and I watched it, and I fell in love with horror in that moment. And it was shortly after that I'm discovering like there's this comic book store and there's these books like Spawn and Hellboy. And I'm like, you mean you can do horror in comic books? This is fantastic. And it just blew up from there.
I have to say, right off the bat, like one of my favorite Foundation stories. Like, loved that, dude. Absolutely loved it, because there were a couple like super intimate details. You were really sad about not getting the same gift as other people, and I would have been too. And I can put myself in that situation with personal experiences, and it takes a lot to just say that, man. And I think that's incredible that you recognize that, and that was a huge part of why these comics were like, oh my gosh, like I love this. Like,
well, the other thing is like with stuff like that, like watching Doctor Who, watching these horror movies and reading these comics, they were showing me things that I hadn't experienced in my own home life at a very young age. I'm seeing, I'm seeing scenes like in the Monster Squad. You're seeing like how much the dad really cares for the son, just ruffling his hair and stuff like that, and nothing too extreme. And there's me going, hold on, there's shouting, there's arguing, there's this and that. Why is that not in this scene? And then, that was me going, oh, that's what a normal family looks like. Shit. What the fuck am I in the middle of that? So yeah, those things, like they taught me stuff that I don't think I would have ever learned in the classroom or from anyone else. So I'm glad that I got exposed to those things. But also, where I was a kid that was being wrapped up in cotton wool, I wasn't allowed to experience the stuff that could be slightly dangerous. I wasn't allowed to make my own mistakes and learn from them. So horror especially was exposing me to stuff that I wasn't necessarily ready for, but I needed to experience and I needed to learn. And over the years, it helped me to grow that thicker skin.
Man, yes. Oh, wow. There's so much. That's one of the stories I'm going to go back and listen to a bunch of times, because I really enjoy that. I really do, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesus. Yes. I have to shout out some people real quick, because we're going to, you and I are on the same wavelength, and I'm telling you, dude, I love that. Plunge Cast. He was here way before we start. Well, like 40 minutes. He's like, hey man, saw this was posted on Facebook. Had him on last year. Hope you guys have a great time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ari.
Ithra, I know I don't usually do earlier interviews, early for America Eastern, but I make exceptions for those special guests, right? Absolutely. And one of those other special guests too is in the building. My dude, Steve.
Hey,
Stark, dude. I
love Steve. He's a fucking awesome guy.
Oh, he is. He's one of those refreshing dudes. That's just like, oh man, I love talking with him. I love what his writing. His writing was a peek into a world that I didn't know that. And I guess I knew it existed, but once you kind of experience the joy and what is the word, like when I read something dark, it's more attractive for me. It's like I love a good wholesome story too. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, of course.
But when it's like, okay, this is particularly dark. I'm just like, okay, it's probably like what I'm gonna start reading right now. I it's just what I do. I think a lot of people might relate. But Steve did a wonderful job, man. I'm so glad to see him here too, because I unfortunately it's like 2 a.m. where you guys are when I start doing interviews usually. So I'm glad to be here and seeing some of the other wonderful people that can catch the interviews at an earlier time. And everybody, you all know this. We have hella kids up in here. If there's a random screech, add some character, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my dudes, I'm trying to find the context for that. My guy, Britton, I'm good. It's good to see you over there. I don't see the context for that. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll throw a comment out. It just makes zero sense. So my good buddy, E.O. Montague, horror touches a soul, deep emotion, and as such, it's thrilling. He's a super intelligent dude, and he writes dark stuff, not horror. Correct me if I'm wrong, Montague, but mostly science fiction and fantasy. But it's dark. It's great. But I love his questions too. He had one in here I wanted to get to. I don't know. Oh, he was asking if you had any visual aids. I think he caught something on the wall back there. Let's see what it is. I think it was the noose.
Quite possibly that does stand out quite a bit. You can't really see it too well from here, but that noose actually has 2 taxidermy crows on it. One on the top and one on the bottom. Their names are Russell and Cheryl Crow.
Yes.
And yes, I've had them for quite a while now because I used to know a taxidermist who I supported quite a bit. They actually got in touch with me and were like, because at the time I was doing YouTube stuff, which I do plan on getting back to at some point. And they were like, hey, you do these like live streams and interviews and things. Could you have one of our objects like on the table or something, or just behind you and stuff? And it was this lamp I've actually got it very close to me, but whether I can move it over or not is a different story.
I want to say real quick, you say you do the YouTube thing. I checked out Lucifer's YouTube channel today, and I'm gonna put this in perspective. I have 250 videos, and I'm at like almost 1,300 subs. He's at like 2,600 with 17 videos. I'm angry, bro. No, I'm just playing. That's amazing, man. I think that is an incredible feat. You should absolutely continue that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to. Man. But this is the lamp that I was given to have there to kind of go, oh, by the way, check out this taxidermist. They do cool shit like this. And I ended up saying, yeah, but if someone buys it, I can't have it on screen anymore. And I really fucking love it. I've named it. I need to buy it off you. So I bought it off them. Yeah, exactly. I bought it off them, and I bought like a few more pieces as well. Like I love what I call morbid curiosities. It's not just taxidermy. It's things like when I do conventions, I have all the Ed Gein books propped up there. I have this like little plastic skull that I put candy in for anyone that goes by. But I also have a vintage prosthetic arm from the 1950s that I have on the table as well, which, let me tell you, some kids see that and go, oh, cool. And other ones go, you know, it's just
There's a
great.
clear separation of interest there that you can immediately identify. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that kid that's interested, he needs this, but he's not old enough to read it, but he needs this.
I understand where he's at, though, right? I love how you can put yourself in that position too. Yeah, dude. So another guy that I spoke with, he's so funny, dude. RJ Barker. He's huge into taxidermy. He's
fantastic.
Yeah, he's a fantasy author for Orbit, and just his whole house is full of it, guy, and it's really incredible.
Yeah, I have so many bits of it that I often forget the certain bits that I have and go, hold on, when the fuck did I get that? The one thing I can't forget though, and this is going back a couple of years now, I was on Facebook and my sister had shared a link saying, hey, can someone help my friend out and buy one of these? And they had a friend who was selling coffins, like brand new, never used coffins, cremation coffins.
They're beautiful.
I immediately got in touch with her and was like, who are your friends? Why aren't you introducing them to me? This is right up my alley. And what had happened is her friend knew someone who had a funeral home, and the funeral home went bust, and they had about 80 coffins. So this guy had bought them dirt cheap and thought, hey, Halloween's coming up. Someone's bound to buy some, aren't they?
Guaranteed.
Right? And he had none sell. And I was like, until now... So I now have, it's off screen, but I now have a full, just over 6 foot tall cremation coffin that's absolutely stunning.
What's the standard size of a coffin, like height wise? Would you say a 6'5" guy could fit into one?
I would have thought so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's normally the width that changes depending on like the shoulders and stuff like that. So let's put it this way. I know that I fit in there quite comfortably because I had to find out.
Sure. No, I mean, I don't know anybody who would buy a coffin and not. It's like, exactly. You have to, right?
Exactly. And like I debated it for a bit because I was like, oh, I don't know, should I? And then like a friend of mine in Connecticut said, considering your name, you would have to give back your horror pass. You would not be able to write horror ever again if you don't buy a coffin. I was like, he's right. He's 100% right.
Yeah. So, and then you immediately got in it. You're like, let's go now. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wonder what the number is of people in the entire history of man that has been in a coffin more than once.
Oh, that's a good question.
Dude, right?
That's a really good question.
That would be fun to kind of dig in. That'd be so hard to get information on. Like, there has to be a specific reason you're like laying in a coffin because, well, you do that once normally.
Well, yeah, normally.
This being the exception, and I would have done the same thing. Well, my wife wouldn't have let me do the same thing, but I would have wanted to do the same thing.
I mean, there has always been stories. I don't know how much evidence there is to support them, but like this is going back like a few hundred years ago of people who they believed were dead, buried them, and then they've gone to exhume the remains and they found all the scratch marks and everything where the people have woken up inside of it, which I never want to be in that fucking position. I think you're mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. It came unplugged. The beauties of doing live, man. I had my camera shut off like 6 times. The mic will stop. The internet will freeze. Oh yeah. It's beautiful. I love doing live interviews because I think it paints a wonderful, authentic, genuine picture.
Absolutely.
And it gives me the chance to it's not this. We're gonna have an experience chatting with people of two like-minded, you know what I mean? And I really enjoy it.
Exactly. I think it's great, and people need to see who the author is. Because it's very easy for people to pick up the book, look at the name, look at the title, read the back, and then they come to all these assumptions. It's like, no, you don't know the author until you've met them in some way, shape, or form. This is why I love doing conventions, because I get to meet people who know my work, and I get to meet people who are like, who the fuck are you? Why are you here? And then we get to communicate and bond.
Is that so exciting to you? From my point of view, if I'm being discovered and like, oh my God, I'm so glad I know of you now. Is that exciting for you when people drop in and give you that kind of reaction?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think a lot of people do get scared by the kind of stuff that I do. I mean, it was only about a year, maybe 2 years ago. You know, there's some guy on Twitter, I'm not even going to mention their name. They saw that I had done this book, Ed Gein Demon Hunter, and all they did is they read the name of the book and went, right, this guy's an asshole. He's part of a hate group and he needs to be cancelled and we need to ban the book and stuff. He got it banned from one fucking store.
That's the typical bullshit that these people are doing nowadays.
Yeah, it is. And it's stupid because I just went, oh, okay, the guy's never talked to me and he's blocked me and everything. I know what I'll do. And I just went on the Facebook and went, can you believe this? Some asshole thinks this. And all of a sudden, my book sales went up and I was getting called up going, do you want to do a convention? Yes, I do.
Your haters are your biggest fans. And like, I've heard that saying, and then I see the actual evidence of this right there. The crazy thing is, he disagrees with something that you do or say or are about. That's completely fine. But to get that, your point of view, your interest, you as a person canceled, what kind of arrogance?
I know, it's fucking stupid, isn't it? It is so fucking stupid. Yeah.
We can disagree on topics and still be freaking buds. Like, people forget that nowadays. People aren't like, you don't believe everything. People are just like, if you don't believe exactly the way that I do, we're just gonna we have to call it right now. I know we have a lot of in common. I know that we have fun together, but you like this and I like this, so we have to part ways.
I'm not a fan of that, especially as part of bonding with other human beings, especially for guys. Come on, as guys, we've got to admit this. Sometimes the way we bond is we take the piss out of each other.
Oh, for sure.
You know, that's just one of the ways of us saying, hey, you're fucking awesome. Or if we've known them for many years, we go, hey, I can't say I love you, not out in public, but I can say this. Your hat looks fucking stupid.
Yes, exactly. If you can give them a good ball bagger, you know, and you just really get to it and make a joke.
Yeah, and the best way to do that is when you have differences. When people are sort of like, you listen to metal music, really? You know, it's really? Like, great. This person's letting me know that they give a shit. You know, that's the first person I'm going to call if I fall and I'm like, shit, I think I've broken my leg. You took the piss out of me early. Call me an ambulance. And they will. They will stand there whilst you're in pain and go, you're an ambulance.
Yes, that is very perceptive. And yes, dude, because what you're saying about the joke part, like, you know, growing up playing American football, you know, that is the thing. You know, people I didn't get along with, we didn't crack on each other. We avoided each other. The ones that I got along with, you know, were ribbing each other and making fun of each other's mothers and whatnot. You know, that's what it is. So I totally agree with you, man.
Well, it's that whole thing of like, if I'm down like a bar and someone throws a bottle at me, there's two different ways they could throw a bottle at me. You know, it's one of my mates going, I'm throwing this at him, but I know it's not going to hit him, but it's definitely going to get his attention. And then there's the guy that throws it and it hits you in the back of the head. That guy's an asshole. They're the enemy, but the guy who threw it by your feet, they're fine.
Yes, I totally agree. Intention has a lot to do with things.
Absolutely.
I think if you take the time to also investigate or care what the intention of people are, it's eye-opening. Yeah, man. Oh, I love that. So wonderful story of how you got kind of where you're at now and what loves sparked that. I'm trying to think of the wording. I hope it makes sense because again, I haven't talked to a lot of. In fact, I think you're the first author I've spoken with that is a graphic novelist. Like, I think that's incredible. By the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be the first.
Yeah, dude, I am too. I think it's wonderful, man. What goes? So okay, we're not going to go there yet. So sorry about the thinking and speaking at the exact same time.
You want to go there, but you're like, no, not yet.
Yeah,
not yet.
I'm just. I don't know if it's time yet. What we've got the love when it came in. Tell us about your upcoming release first.
Okay, so my upcoming release is Lady Satan, which is written by myself, illustrated by Christian Rossi, who's worked on my previous book. It's a dark revenge thriller about Lucille. Now, Lucille is a stripper from France who she had a little bit of a rough childhood, but now she's doing well. You know, she's just had to dump her boyfriend. He was a bit of a prick. But it's okay. She is quite happy until one day on Christmas, her home is invaded and she's abducted to be the star of a snuff film.
Oh,
but
wow.
she does something that no one else has done. She survives the experience. She is brutally broken mentally, physically, emotionally. She doesn't know how to survive in the world anymore. And she becomes a dark vigilante known as Lady Satan. She starts taking out these small-time crooks across Europe. She's on the hunt to find the only copy of the snuff film that she was in because she wants to destroy it, believing that if she can destroy it, she can go back to living a happy existence. And along her travels, she ends up on the UK. And while she's there, she discovers that the man who tortured her in front of the camera is a high-ranking British police officer who's under investigation from the MI5. So she has one chance and one chance only to exact her revenge.
My heart's pumping. I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, man.
You know, the favorite bit about pitching that one is when you say snuff film. The moment you say that, people either go, oh, or they go, get the fuck away from me.
So for those who don't know what a snuff film is, would you give the definition of a snuff film?
The definition of a snuff film, I'm trying to remember the exact wording for the legal definition because there is some weird little gray areas around it. But basically, it's a film that is made for the intention of making profit that involves seeing someone being brutally murdered on camera.
Okay. Yeah, a pornographic movie of an actual murder.
Yes.
That's it right there.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so that's from the Oxford Dictionary. That's very. I love how, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, this is a complex word, this and that, and then Oxford's like, no, it isn't. Come on, you know. So to me, I'm not the guy that's like. I'm more like, oh, this sounds exciting. Like she's in a terrible situation. Yeah, and I have good feeling about some shit she's gonna do along the way.
Oh yes. At the moment, Christian's pretty much done with the third chapter or third issue of the book, and there's 4 chapters altogether. So we're looking to have the whole graphic novel done towards the end of the year. And so far, it's just fucking beautiful. I think it's. I'm really excited about the story. I'm really excited about putting it into people's hands because I know it's going to be a horribly divisive story. Mm-hmm. I know that half the readers are going to be disturbed and offended, and the other half are going to go, so when's the second one coming out?
Which, to you, in my opinion, or from my point of view, if I was to receive both in the way that you just said, are the same.
Yeah.
Are the same reaction because some people who are like, oh, this is too much for me, is also saying, people on this other side, they're going to love it at the exact same time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like when I do, I mean, this is the thing. I can understand why some people, they hear the pitch and they go, oh no, get the fuck away from me, because it's not just the fact that it's very dark. It sounds very exploitative. But when you actually start reading the story, you realize that there's something a lot deeper. Like I treat graphic novels and comic books the same way I would treat writing a prose novel. A lot of people approach prose novels with respect and passion an honor. And don't get me wrong, there are some amazing writers in the field of graphic novels and comic books, but there are a lot of people who go, I don't have to take the writing that seriously, do I? And they should.
Wow, I didn't know that aspect to it. But that's a little piece of gold, I like to say on my channel. That's inside information.
Yeah, absolutely. I've met people who they could write some really great stories, but they just write with like one layer. That's it. Everything's kind of two-dimensional. And I can kind of understand why, because they want the art to shine. But if you really want the art to shine, then you need to really impress your artist. Because when you think about it, when you're writing a novel, if you've got an editor, you're writing for them, no one else. You are writing for them, and they go, yeah, okay, we fixed it. Now other people will enjoy it. Whereas with graphic novels, you're writing for an audience of one, your artist. If you cannot impress your artist, you're not going to impress anyone else. And the best way to impress your artist is you make it as layered as you possibly can. You don't have to be overly complex with it, but you want to show that there's an emotional side to it. It's not just two characters beating 10 shades of shit out of each other. There's something going on within the characters and between the characters.
Now, is this a practice? And it just was one of the questions that popped in my mind. Would a graphic novelist purposely tone down the complexity of the prose so that the art does shine? Like that could be done on purpose? Is that something is that a strategy?
That can be done. I think it really depends on the type of story you're trying to tell, and I think it also depends on the experience of the writer as well, because some people, they're very new to comics and they're like, I want to write comics. And if you want to write a novel, there's so many courses out there. There are so many tutors. There are so many universities where you can learn about the creative writing aspect. But what about comics itself? Because it's a very different medium. There's stuff that you can do in comics that you can't do in prose, and there's stuff you can do in prose that you can't do in comics. So there's a lot of crossover in what you need to know in order to write both mediums, but there's also a lot of differences. So I think a lot of people, they get into writing comics and they go, well, the only thing I've got to teach me how to write this is the old superhero comics, the public domain superhero comics, because it is very much a medium that is overly saturated by the superhero genre.
Oh my gosh, I just had a brilliant question. I just lost it. It'll come back. Oh my gosh. I hate that because I was so excited to ask it. That's typical for me. Bring a question. Oh, okay. So the difference that before speaking with you as we are right now, this is what I know. I didn't do any research of this because I wanted it to be genuine. So that when we talked, I was learning and it was engaging. If somebody came up to me yesterday and said, hey, would you explain the difference in a graphic novel and a comic book? The only thing I would have said is a graphic novel is comprehensive. It's a whole story from beginning to end. And a comic book is just additions that are being published small bits at a time.
Yeah, I often look at it as the single issue comic books are chapters of a much bigger story. So you're kind of serializing a graphic novel almost. I mean, that is very much an oversimplification. If you turn to writers like Alan Moore, he would just say that a graphic novel is just a big comic book. And I can understand why he says that, but I completely disagree. With a comic book, if a publisher comes to me and says, I want you to write Batman, or I want you to write Doctor Strange, or whatever, I've got to stick to 22 pages per issue. So I've got to make sure that the story is completely wrapped up in 22 pages, or that a chapter or an act of the story is done within 22 pages and can operate like it's its own story. Whereas with a graphic novel, I don't have to worry about a page count. I just have to worry about whether I've got enough money to pay the artist to illustrate that page count or not.
That kind of leads me into the next question. Do graphic novelists such as yourself give your personal experience, and then maybe a little bit of an overview of a couple other. Um, do I'm going to say you guys, with graphic novelists, um, often write and do the art, or is that usually a separate thing?
No, it's not usually a separate thing. It really depends. Some people they're quite happy to sit down, write the book, and illustrate it themselves. I mean, Frank Miller is an obvious one. He writes and illustrates all the Sin City books. Okay, I know it's amazing what he does. Some people are very comfortable doing that. Some people aren't. I used to write and illustrate them, but the illustration process is so long-winded. Sometimes it would just take a day to pencil and ink a page, and other times it would take 2 or 3 days just to ink and pencil like one panel from a page. So I got to the point where I was like, I can only do one of these. I either write it or I draw it, and I felt more confident in my writing. Writing is my wheelhouse. I had done some prose stuff beforehand, or at least I experimented with prose stuff beforehand. I've got qualifications in writing. I'm mostly self-taught as a writer, but I do have a diploma in, of all things, writing children's books, which I haven't done for a fucking long time because it didn't do anything for me.
It had to have added to what you use in your arsenal, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And it did teach me a lot that helped me with other types of storytelling as well. So yeah, I eventually said, right, I'm going to write them myself and let someone else draw them. And I did have some bad experiences with some artists. There was one artist who I had to take legal action against.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up walking away from that for a little bit and trying to draw them myself again, and was like, no, I need to just stick to the writing. And one guy, oh yeah, absolutely. I knew I wouldn't be happy if I was drawing them. So I was like, okay, I've got to keep writing them. And I heard people mention this wonderful artist called Christian Rossi. And I saw some of his stuff and went, wow, this reminds me of Eduardo Riso, who illustrated 100 Bullets. He illustrated a Batman story when DC were doing the Flashpoint stuff. And I was like, man, his style is so similar. And then I discovered that's because he's the assistant of Eduardo Riso. And I saw one day on Twitter that he was doing commissions. And I thought, I'm gonna see what I can do. So I messaged him and said, hey, pal, like, how much for a commission? And he told me, and I said, okay, can you draw my character, Lady Satan? And he had a go at it, came back, and the process was so quick. It was so professional. I never experienced anything like it. And I just went, dude, do you want to work on a comic book together? And he was like, yeah, sure. What's it called? And I was like, it's called Ed Gein Demon Hunter. And he's like, I'm in. I'm all in. And we've been working together ever since.
That's amazing. What a cool, you needed something in that time so bad because of the bad experiences that you had, and perfect person, right? Just pops up and has just done you right. I might be a stupid question, but it's nonetheless a question that I'm pondering, so I need to ask it.
No, go for it.
In a graphic novel, does every single page is there like a rule where every single page has to have art? Are there will you read full pages of prose in between pieces of art?
You can do. There are books that are done like that, where you have a few pages of illustrations with several panels and the speech bubbles and stuff, and then all of a sudden you've got a black page and you've got some words, some text going with it, and it's really nice. I think one of the best examples of that is probably The Crow by James O'Barr. There are several bits where he's got like little bits of poems and lyrics from great songs that inspired him whilst he was doing that book. And if you haven't read that book, you've got to give it a go, because that is the author's name? James O'Barr.
James O'Barr.
Because I guarantee most people have seen the movie with Brandon Lee, but they've never read the book. And the inspiration for him to do that book was he was dating this girl that he was madly in love with, and she got killed by a drunk driver. And he just didn't know how to cope with it. So he created The Crow. And it was a book that took him, I think it was about 8 years to illustrate in the end, because it was such a painful experience for him. So he was doing it in like these little 8-page chunks. And he tries all these different styles within it. Like some of it's very loose and sketchy and cartoony, and some of it looks like hyper realistic or photographs and stuff. It's just a beautiful book.
And I can see how getting into graphic novels with that extra component of the visual art could make the vastness or the amount of possibilities even more endless. I don't know what other way to put it, but infinite.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much that I believe the comics medium still needs to be discovered. And there's still so much of it that I don't think enough people are utilizing. Like, I think one of the most magical things about it is you can have an illustration of one thing, but the wording gives it a completely different context. It can take something so beautiful and joyful and turn it into something quite sinister. I think a good example of this is there's a book by Mike Mignola, who was the creator of Hellboy, and it was called The Amazing Screw-On Head.
The Amazing Screw-On Head?
Yep, that's the one. It's a short comic story with quite a few other short comic stories in it. But at the end of The Amazing Screw-On Head, he does this very kind of noir but Victorian style noir illustration. And he's doing like these portraits of old Victorian people. And there's one where it's an old woman. She's sat there posing, and she's got a sign around her, and the words just say werewolf. And just that simple word just changes the whole context of what you are looking at and makes you look at it from a very different angle and through a very different lens. And there's just something really amazing about that.
That would be an incredible experience as a reader.
Yeah.
I was kind of debating when to kind of bring it up, but it kind of goes with my question that I'm going to ask next. Okay. So I'll ask the question first. So your previously published works are, will you say the names of them? And they're also graphic novels as well.
Ed Gein Demon Hunter is the one that I think most people stick to. Like, I did some, this is going back years and years and years ago now, and you won't be able to find them for love nor money, and they never got finished, unfortunately. But that was like books like Jericho, which, you know, that was me entering into the world of comics as a writer. Because what had happened is, I hope you're ready for a story.
I love it.
So in the year 2000, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He was told by the doctors, you better get your shit together because you've got about 6 weeks left to live. Now, my father was a very stubborn man, and he lived for another 10 years.
Are you serious?
He lived for another 10 years. The cancer spread, unfortunately, and there was a divide in my family because of his diagnosis and how certain family members reacted to it. When he passed away in 2010, funnily enough, he was someone who was terrified of Friday the 13th. He was so superstitious about it, and he died on a Friday the 13th. So I understand his superstition. He bought himself so much extra time, and then that's the fucking day he died on. You know?
That is a true, like, it's like, what's the most gangster story I've heard today? Somebody who was expected to live for 6 weeks pumped out a decade.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly.
Fiery.
Like, it's fucking great because I think every kid looks at their father like they're Superman. So when you see them go through the cancer treatment, it's horrifying. Because you're seeing Superman being brought down by this kryptonite that you can't see. It's inside of them. But knowing that they've gone on for like 10 years longer than they should do, that's fucking Superman. You know, down to the letter.
He's like, this ain't a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah, exactly, man.
That's amazing. On the same note, I'm incredibly sorry that your father had to go through that. I've watched a person in my life that passed from cancer, and it's
Yeah.
not something I ever want. I would never want any other human being to like witness or go
No.
through, or it's
No.
awful. So, but on
It
the
is.
other hand, he was like, I'm calling the shots, Doc.
Yeah.
You sit back there and let me show you something real quick.
Yeah, exactly. You say 6 weeks, pfft, fuck that. I will stay here as long as I fucking want to.
It's like,
I'll leave when I'm ready.
It's like, I got shit to do, Doc.
Yeah, exactly.
I love
So
that, man. I really love that.
just before he passed, I was, dabbling about with stories as you do. And I started thinking about how the topic of cancer could be used as almost like a nemesis within a superhero story. And my dad passes away, and he doesn't leave me anything in the will, which is fine. I respect that. I honor that. He left things to the other siblings. Hey, that's fine. His decision. Okay. But he did leave me like a little check to be like, don't contest the will. Take this. And it was a very teeny tiny amount of money. It's only like a few thousand. Okay. Not enough to like really like start your own life or anything with. And I looked at it and I thought, well, hold on. What would my dad do in this situation? Because my dad, when he was like, he came from a very poor family. Okay. They had nothing to their name. He left school at around 13, 14 to start working so that he could bring money in for his family and stuff. And when he was about 18, he got a loan, and he decided that he was going to start his own business. And he went from there. He became an entrepreneur, and he did very, very well for himself. So I looked at this check and went, you know what? My dad, if he was still around and he got handed a check like this, he would find a way to make it grow. He would turn this into a business of some sort. What do I want to do? Now, I had left school at about 16 years old. I had no idea what I was going to do for a career. I was a rolling stone. I was going from shitty dead-end job to shitty dead-end job to shitty dead-end job. I just didn't care because I wanted to live life. Okay. So I was skateboarding. I was listening to metal, trying to start my own bands and stuff. And I'm there with this check, and I've just left the job. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always been writing stories ever since I was a kid. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I'm going to dive in at the deep end because one of two things happens. I sink or I swim. If I sink, I got to go fucking work at McDonald's or whatever. But if I swim, I get to do this for the rest of my life. So I did exactly that, and somehow, some way, I'm still here, still fucking doing it. And I'm not sure how.
So, oh my goodness. I'll get the major thing because there's so many different things in my head at the moment. But the major thing is what I have a tremendous amount of respect for you to be able in that moment to not feel hate or bitterness or anything along those lines, but instead, what would Dad do? Yeah. I'm gonna pay homage.
Yeah,
and I'm going to be a man, and I'm going to start my future right now. And I think that's something that he would respect too.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, bear in mind, I'm going to tell you another story in a little minute. When my father was around, he didn't get me, and I didn't get him because we were two very different people. He was a laborer. He worked with his hands. He believed in we live to work, and I believed in no, we work so that we can live. We're not here to work all the time. I was very creative. I was always drawing, always writing, always interested in music and storytelling and just getting lost in my own imagination, and I don't think he understood that whatsoever. Not until a few weeks before he passed away, when I showed him a comic book that I had made myself, and I had just gone down to like the local copy shop, and I got like 10 copies printed, and I showed him, and it was shit. It was an absolute piece of shit, this comic book. But he looked at it, and it was the first time he didn't say, "Get a real job," or anything like that, because he always had a quip to say to me to kind of let me know, like, I don't approve of what you're doing with your life. But in this moment, he looked at it, and he flipped through the pages, and you could tell that he still didn't understand it, but he saw that there was potential. And he just said, "How much did it cost you to make this?" And I was like, "Oh, well, it cost a few bucks." He's like, "So you could probably sell it for about this much. How many other people like this kind of thing? Have you gone out there and tested it? Have you got other people's opinions and stuff?" And that was one of the last experiences that I had with my dad. And it was like, wow, that was the first time that I didn't feel like daddy's little black sheep. Right. And he passes away. And like I said, in that moment, yeah, I could have been angry. I could have been like, what the fuck is this check? And I had people telling me, you need to contest the will, this, that, and the other. I said, no.
That's not healthy.
I was like, no, I'm not going to contest a dying man's last wish. That's called fucking stupid. I wouldn't want anyone to do that to me if the tables were turned, Sure. And I feel now, as silly as it may sound to some people, I feel now that my dad has passed, he understands me more. I actually had someone at a convention who came up to me. They hadn't heard of me. They were asking about the book and everything. And they asked questions similar to yours. And I told them that same story about my dad passing, how we didn't get along really whilst he was alive. And they didn't just buy the book. When they handed me the money, they said, "Don't ask me how, but I've just got this feeling that your dad is super proud of you right now."
Man,
and it was like, oh.
I came here to sell books. Now you're making me cry.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. And another thing that really resonated with me on that subject is I'm not a religious person. Okay. I respect everyone's religion. I don't care if someone believes in God. I will quite happily speak highly about it. I won't try to tell them that they're wrong or convince them otherwise. It's just how I see things. It's how they see things. And my family was a very... Yeah, absolutely. And I come from a family that is a very devout Christian family. Mm-hmm. But even though I'm not religious, I do describe myself as being very spiritual. Sure. Okay. And I do practice little spiritual things. I read tarot on the side as well. And there was this time, oh God, I think it was near the beginning of the year or just before Christmas. I was looking for a particular set of tarot cards that I felt that I bonded with well enough to use when I read for clients, because I've got various different tarot cards and not all of them feel like the right set of tarot cards to use with certain clients. I wanted like a one deck fits all kind of thing. Sure. And I went on to this, I think it was Etsy of all fucking places, found a seller, and they had this pure black tarot deck. And I was like, oh, that looks a bit nice. I think that's the one.
You made the sound, you even were like, oh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was one of those where you just take a moment and go, oh.
Yes.
Oh, that's a bit fucking tasty.
They made that for me.
So I put the order in. A couple of days later, I'm having my tarot read by someone, and they said to me that in the reading they said they were getting a message from someone who's no longer alive, and they used to know you when they were alive. They were very strict towards you. They were very unfair. They see things clearly now. They're sorry, and they want you to know that they're really proud of you, and that somehow they're going to get a present to you in the next few days. And I thought, okay, I think they're talking about my dad. I don't know. Sure. A few days later, the box turns up and I think, oh, it's my pure black tarot deck. Can't wait. I open it up. It's from that seller, but it's not a pure black tarot deck. It's a gold foil tarot deck, and it's stunning. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I've never seen it. I went back onto their store. I couldn't find a listing for it. I messaged the seller and said, hey, I don't know what's happened, but you've actually sent me these instead of the black ones. I'm not complaining. These are gorgeous. And then they sent a message back saying, we've never seen those in our fucking life.
Dude.
When we sent the box, it was the pure black tarot. And I was like, this is that fucking present, isn't it?
Wow. Yeah. It's like when a conversation, spirituality, in your life comes to fruition in that moment. I mean, that was a moment you'll never forget, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I carry those cards with me. Like, obviously, if I'm going down to the store to get a newspaper or a loaf of bread, they don't come with me. But every convention I go to, I always carry them with me.
I have a sick habit of, I will grab, usually it's the book I'm reading in the moment. But if I'm not reading any physical books, I'll still grab a book, like to go to the doctor's office with me. It's like my Xanax, because let's just face it, I'm an addict, and if I took Xanax, I'm allergic. I'd break out in handcuffs. And yeah, so that is my feel good. I grab a book, and as long as it's there, because if it's missing, bro, I don't feel right. I have to go back home. And I've never been this way. I gave you somewhat of an introduction about, so I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is those spiritual moments, that when they present themselves in whichever way they do, you know, for you, it's something different than me, but they're so impactful, and they give you something to hold on to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel that when it comes to writing stories, that in its own way is kind of its own spiritual practice, because there's that state of flow that you get into. You're almost in that meditative state. I mean, we've had a couple of comments from Nick from London Gothic. Nick's a fucking wonderful bloke. Great book. He often says, when people say like, oh my God, what was writing this like? How did you come up with the ideas? He always says, I don't think I wrote it. I think the devil wrote it and I was just his typist.
He says that.
He says that. And I completely understand what he means. Because when I was writing Ed Gein, when I was writing Lady Satan, it really was a moment where you're very conscious, you're very aware, you're going in with the intention of going, okay, I want this to happen, and then this, and then all of a sudden you're just, and you're not even thinking anymore. It's almost as if you're asleep and then you blink and you're like, oh shit, I've got a script. Is it any good?
Oh my gosh. That isn't, I've seen him on my chats before in the past, but I take these moments such as now you're talking about him and his book and his writing and what he does to write their names down and go to check their work out, because as you know, there's just a sea of possible next books, right?
Yes.
So I love when I can relate with somebody or really have a lot in common with somebody that is an author or a fellow reviewer. I always take those recommendations very seriously. So I'm going to be checking his stuff out for sure.
Excellent.
I did ask, I almost forgot actually. The reason I asked you a couple questions about the rules and the graphic novels is what I'd love to do is I'm going to grab Ed Gein, Demon Hunter. That's going to be my very first graphic novel ever. And I'm going to do a review, video review on the channel, man. And I'd love for like us to do like a little recorded part, you and me, and I think that would be cool, man. That I think people need to know you can break into other things that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to do that. I mean, the world of comics, from a writer's perspective, there's a lot of fear going into it. And you know, there's bound to be, because of all the different rules. But the thing is, the rules are very easy to learn, and once they're there, that's it. They don't shift, not for love nor money. You know, you're always conscious of them as you're writing, and in a way, it feels like you're writing a mixture between a movie and a novel at the same time. It's quite a weird experience, but once you've done it once, it takes over, and that's it. You're like, I need to do another one and another one and another one.
I do. It's funny that you say that, because I do some written reviews for Fan-Fi Addict and Before We Go blog, and I wanted to do the written reviews because there's nothing that I feared more in this community than writing a review.
Right.
Being somewhat new to analyze a book, my process, and I actually felt kind of stupid about this, so I had brought it up with actually John Minton from Talking Story. We were talking while we were live, and I was like, yeah, I end up just talking about how I felt, giving a brief summation, but then just going into how I felt during the whole book. And he's like, that is what is beautiful. He's like, dude, you're doing nothing wrong. So the reason I'm saying that is when I go through a book, I see these written reviews that are like, oh, this prose is this, and this trope is used too often, or this sentence. I am not that type of reviewer. I feel like I'm more of I don't really know what the hell I'm trying to say. I guess I was trying really hard at one point to reach out to people and say, hey, what am I doing wrong as far as writing a review? It's like my brain could not comprehend. Now I can make a video, pros, cons, this and that, a rating. When it comes to writing it, though, I was just so intimidated. So I just explain my experience, and I think that people resonate with that.
But that's not just the point of a review. That's the point of writing a book. You know, I mean, the whole process of writing a book, regardless of whether it's comic book, graphic novel, novella, whatever, the most intimidating thing about the whole process is that blank page, right? But that's when you need to remember what, and I believe it was Ernest Hemingway. If it wasn't, it was Mark Twain, who said, writing is easy. You walk up to the blank page and you open a vein. That's all you need to do. It's the same with a review. You may not be telling a story, but you kind of are. You're telling the story of you reading the book and how it made you feel. That's what we all connect with in stories, is the feelings, the emotions, the struggles that the characters are going through. With a review, you are the character. And you're just telling a very authentic and true story.
I think they call it, what syndrome they call it? I don't think it's a syndrome.
Oh, imposter syndrome.
Yes, imposter syndrome. That I had no clue what the hell that meant until very recently, by the way. But now that I do, that is very much how I felt about writing a review. I said, the reason I wanted to do it, put yourself in those uncomfortable positions to get where you want to go. It's not a road full of cushiness. You have to push yourself and learn things and put yourself out there. That was a major.
Let me ask you something. Then. When it comes to feeling that imposter syndrome, when you're writing a review, do you think that the imposter syndrome comes up because there's a part of you that doubts yourself? Or do you think it's because there's some part of you on a subconscious level that's scared that someone's going to read your review and be like, this is bullshit. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Before, if I'd have thought about that question overnight, I wouldn't have answered it correctly. But just, I knew the answer as soon as you finished the second part. If somebody was like, oh, this is book, that wouldn't bug me, not even a little bit. It's myself and keeping myself. Who are you to explain a book, to influence somebody else, or not to influence, give your idiot take on this book, because what the hell do you know? That's the voice I have.
Right. I'm going to tell you a little story again. I do apologize. So just over a month ago, I was doing a convention in my hometown of Bournemouth. So I didn't really have to go very far. It was technically it was two conventions, one day for each convention. They were back to back, same venue, same organizers. The first day, it was this alternative convention. So you had tattooists there, you had live music, you had all this weird, crazy horror stuff that was being sold. I tell you what, I set up my table and I thought, yeah, I fit right in. And then opposite me, there's a table and there's this guy in this mobility scooter and he's got all these boxes and bags. And he looks like the kind of guy who's going to sell action figures, right? And I'm thinking, oh, what's he got in those boxes? All of a sudden, whips, dildos, the fucking works. Anyway, most of them clear up and I'm there for the next day. Most of them aren't, so they all clear up. I've still got the same table and it's the Comic-Con. It's the comic convention. So I'm like, right, okay, let's fucking do this. We got all these tables set up, all these people are flowing in, and I turn around for a few seconds just to grab a sip of a drink. And when I look back, there's this young guy. I mean, he must have been about 21, 22, 23 maybe. And he's taking photos of my table and the book. And I'm like, hey, fella, how's it going? And he's like, yeah, I can't buy the book, but I love this. You've gone out and you've done something that I've wanted to do.
Wow.
You have made a book and you're here at a convention doing it. And I was like, why don't you do your book? And he was like, honestly, I'm fucking terrified.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of putting it out there. I'm terrified of what people are going to say, how that's going to affect me. I'm worried that I'm not good enough, this, that, and the other. I said, right, sit the fuck down. And I sat him down. And I said, let me tell you something. On this planet, whether it is good art or bad art, there's an audience for it.
Hell yeah.
Okay? Whether it's one person or 1,000. Now, every single piece of art has affected someone in a different way. But I guarantee you this, because I know this for a fact. I've heard so many stories. I've had this experience with one of my books as well, where you put it out there and someone has picked up that book. And at that time, they're thinking about ejecting themselves from the mortal fucking coil. They are thinking about putting a gun to their head or a rope around their neck. And the thing that stops them is they read that book. They hear that joke. They hear that song. They see that scene in that fucking movie. If your book doesn't exist, someone fucking dies. Do you want that blood on your fucking hands? It's the same with your reviews. That review could make someone go, I'm feeling low. This sounds cool. I like this guy's style of reviewing. I'll pick up that book, read it. Oh my God, I want to fucking live and not die. Fuck what everyone else thinks. A bit of tough love there for you, but fuck what everyone else. Oh no, they might hate me. Shit, right? They might not like it. That's the price you fucking pay. So pay it.
My guy. Yes.
If I could drop this microphone, I fucking would, but it's on enough.
Hey, when somebody is passionate about a topic or much more than a topic, it's part of your life, and what you find passionate, man. Yeah. It's incredible to hear that kind of stuff. And did you keep in touch with this guy? Did he? What did he?
He was so shocked. I thought, oh, he's gonna fucking hit me now. You know? And he didn't. He just put his hand out and he shook my hand and he took my business card and he said, dude, I'm going to get home and I'm going to start writing. And I was like, fucking good. Because one day I want to be doing a convention and see you on the table next to me.
Absolutely, man. That is inspiring. And not a lot of people would go out of their way to just to a stranger you're never going to see again and watch you have a positive impact in their life, man. I think that's absolutely incredible. And yeah, dude, 100 respect that.
Yeah, it's what you've got to do. And I get that fear too, because everyone's fucking had it. You know? Believe you me, doing some of the books that I do, I think, oh God, people are going to hate me. They're going to hate this book. And then I just say, so fucking what? That
was me in high school. I was very quiet. I was very overweight. I was 6'5", 365 pounds. And for a guy that wants to be invisible.
Yeah.
6'5" and 365. There's no way. I'm sweaty after gym class. They make me do skins, instead of wearing my shirt for basketball.
Oh, isn't that
And
fucking embarrassing? Because I was a very overweight kid. Fuck it, I'm an overweight adult. You know? So I get how humiliating that is. And every fucking PE teacher was exactly the same. Like, there's the fat kid. He skins.
Yeah, creepy and a dick. So that was my. I don't want them to think. What if they? I've lost that because, well, hell, I don't. I've been through a lot, and I'm sure people that lose that fear of other people's opinion, it takes a little bit of beating that out of you, like throwing you around to make you say, I just really don't give a shit anymore about that, because now my most influential voice, point of view, critic is me times a million. Like, I will put something off just because I know I'm not going to be good at it. But to be good at it, you have to do it. Writing, you're not going to be good. I'm not going to be good the first time I start writing. I have to write in order to get better and be good.
That is the other way of looking at it, is to turn around and go, well, hold on. If that imposter syndrome is saying this is what people will say, then it's also letting you know where your weaknesses lie. So now you know what to work on to turn them into strengths so that you can do it.
It takes a lot of self-reflection to even recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like, at the end of the day, if you want to write a story and you're feeling scared, you know, the imposter syndrome kicks in and goes, look, you're not Stephen King. You're not Clive Barker. You can't fucking do this. Well, guess what? There was a point where they sucked too. We just never got to read those parts. So dare to suck.
Yes, dare to suck. Yeah, dude. Hell yeah. I'm getting that tattoo right here. I love that, man. So, wow. Yes, I love so many of those stories. I often get stories that are one layer, but with the stories you've told, man, it truly is effective and not only inspiration. You truly inspired me with a lot of things, but there's a lot of meaning in just like not writing or you found a couple cheat codes just from the stories that you've told and how you deal with certain things and how you react and letting certain things not judge or dictate how your day's going to go. Yeah, it takes time, man, and it takes courage to get over that.
It does. And let me tell you, for every story that I can tell you, like the ones that I've told you today, I can tell you 10 where I failed as a human being completely.
You know? That's the reason you can tell that great story, though. It's like there's these really shitty stories that I often tell. Sometimes I do because it's part of why I am who I am today. I do apologize. Kids are
no apologies. No apologies. If anyone's just tuning in, they're just going to think that I've got someone tied up in the back. That's all. You know? That's
it. Someone call the police.
Have you seen his name? He is definitely a Satan worshiper.
I can imagine that some ignorant somebody. I actually thought about that. I think it's a freaking kick-ass name.
Thank you very much.
And that's from a Christian. Lucifer.
Even better.
Storm. Yeah, I'm not what you would say a super. I don't go to church, but I am a Christian. But I have my way of thinking and doing things, and never would I ever judge that name.
No, I get it. Some people do. Some people do right off the bat. You know, I've had people book me for shows and stuff, and then they've seen the name and gone, maybe not. And it's like,
the thing is as a Christian, you're supposed to forgive. In 1 second.
Hello, folks. It's my show now.
You know, it's crazy. The babysitter canceled on us today, so
no.
I was not missing my interview with my dude here. What was I saying? Oh, the Christian thing is to be forgiving and to not be a judgmental human.
Yes,
if I
absolutely
don't know anything about you, but your name, and I'm like, oh no. I mean, what is that? That's I don't get it. I give every human, regardless of race, color, ethnicity, religion, background,
Absolutely.
uh, spectrum, if they're rich, they're poor. Like, I truly, truly live my life that way. I truly do. And
Yeah,
it's freeing, man. Like, to
it
not have
is.
to, because I hear people, there's people in my family, they cannot go 5 minutes without judging somebody
Yeah.
and comparing themselves because of how little they feel.
Yes. Yes. I completely get it. I've been there so many times. And, once again, going back to when I was a kid, I was often told things like, oh, you shouldn't trust people like that because they've got tattoos. And if they've got tattoos, that means they're a criminal and things like that. And as a kid, I was like, you know what? I'm going to speak to those people and ask them if they are criminals and shit like that. And because of that, I've learned to not just be drawn to the stuff that most people run away from, but to give it a fucking chance, because all the stuff that people seem to be scared of, this is something that I kind of cottoned on to shortly after my dad had passed away, because obviously it was a very low moment in my life, and I'd already had quite a few low moments in my life at that point. And I realized that when you have your low moments, when you have those moments that upset you, what's one of the first things that people say to you? It's like, don't cry. Don't let this get to you and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but why? Because that's what I'm feeling at the moment. You don't want me to go there because you're scared I'll go down a spiral and I'll never come back up. But have you been to the bottom of that spiral? Because if not, I'm diving in. And let me tell you, it's a fucking dark place. You're going to have dark times. You're going to have dark thoughts. But there's something underneath it called paradise. You've got to swim right to the bottom, break through the darkness, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, the world's pretty fucking amazing.
This is the most cliche thing I've probably ever said, but cliche or not, it is true. If I wouldn't have hit, I have addiction in my past, and I was on heroin for a while, and homeless, the whole deal. Like, I really was bad on it. And if I wouldn't have known what rock bottom, I can picture it right now. I can feel it. I have that to remind me every single day, right?
Exactly.
If I didn't get to that dark spot, the light wouldn't be nearly as bright.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can only get light from darkness. If the darkness isn't there, then where's the light going to come from?
It's going to be zero contrast in your life, and it's just going to be a big gray area in which that's not living, I don't think.
Everything in our existence all comes to duality. Absolutely everything. You can spend days, months, weeks, years trying to find the one thing in life that doesn't have duality, and you will never fucking find it.
Agree. Totally agree. Yeah, my most one of the things I love most is talking about that type of stuff, like things that are innate, like biologically in us, that whether Karen thinks it's right or wrong, it is. It always will be, and it never has been different. And
absolutely.
It's so fun to talk about. But oh my gosh, I think that if I had unlimited time, man, we'd just kind of just chill, take a little like 2-minute drink break, and we'll continue for like 5 or 10 more days.
Easily. So you mean you're going to do this again tomorrow? Because I'm there.
Well, that would be incredible. What is tomorrow?
It's a day ending with Y. That's all I know.
That you can bet on that. I think what I would love to do is definitely the idea that I brought up earlier. I had thought about it today, and I'm like, what? First, it gives me something to really, really. I'm not comfortable there, right? So I get to learn.
Yeah.
And I think, in fact, I have a really good inkling that it's going to send me into what is going to be a huge inspiration on me picking the keyboard up, if you will, and actually putting words down and helping me with my imagination, because I do believe, this is my theory, my imagination, I think, suffers because I am not the guy that read Chronicles of Narnia or read The Hobbit or had it read to me when I was 6 or 7, 8 years old. I'm not 29 years old before I read my very first leisure book. I had read books before that, but because I was forced to.
Yeah.
And when you start to grow your imagination at 29 or try to see the boundaries of it and how vivid things can be or how creative you can become when you're really trying, I do, just from talking with people, believe that the younger you start, first of all, more passion is going to go into it because it's brand new. You're young. Everything's all ooh and shiny when you're young. Now, I do think that continuing to work on it, I'll get there. It's just not going to be as easy as if I had been in that situation.
I can understand that. I can definitely understand that.
Let's see. I want to throw up a couple comments real quick. That's like, is that a cardinal sin to ask on live?
No, it's not a cardinal sin to ask that one live, and I'm more than happy to answer it. No, it's not my birth given name. My birth given name, the Storm part, is my birth given name.
Oh wow!
But Lucifer wasn't. My actual name is Fway, which is a weird fucking name. Still trying to find out the origins of it, and it's spelt very weirdly. I went with a pen name because I used to use it on books, and I found that it actually put people off of trying the books, let alone buying them. I was trying to look for a decent name to go with Storm, and everyone that I found, it was either already taken or it didn't sound right. And then my friend in Connecticut, who's a very devout Christian, I was joking with him and said, you know, what if I call myself Lucifer Storm? And he said, you know what, normally I would fucking hate that, but for you, it's perfect. So I gave it a go, and it's worked ever since.
I love that. You could have been like, there's some funny routes you could have went. You could have been Thunder, right?
Or Brain.
Yeah. Oh, my buddy Brainstorm over there. What the hell are you talking about? Yes, incredible, man. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that's great.
No, that's cool.
Do that. So I have to say, I'm very thankful to have been able to hang out with you for a little bit.
I'm really glad we've done this. This has been great.
You're definitely somebody that I can't wait to dive into. Ed Gein, and just I need to know what this Demon Hunter is what this looks like. I need to know what it's about. I need to go in, and I'm going to devour it in a way that I'm going to study, right? Not too much, because it's for leisure. I want to have so much, and I know I will, but it's my first time. And we got a photo bomber. That's Jackson.
Hi, little guy. How's it going?
So that's Lucifer Storm. He's shy. I hadn't said your name yet. I bet he'll think that's the coolest shit ever. He writes. So I was gonna say, he writes books with pictures in it, like the big books that Daddy has. But he also has pictures in them, and he's probably like, "Let's go buy one right now." But yeah, man, I can see this. I've got some great. I'm trying not to say too much live because I want to talk to you after the show. But yeah, man, I've had such a good time. So many beautiful points and real life experience in those stories. So again, thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. It's been absolutely great doing this. I've been looking forward to this ever since we booked it, and I'm so glad that we've done it. And you know, that's it. You're not going to be able to get rid of me now, I'm afraid. I do apologize. I'm kind of like herpes like that. I just keep coming back.
I love it. That's funny. Yes, dude. That's the kind of humor that I get. Yes.
Excellent.
And then my grandmother would be like, "Oh dear." You know what I mean?
He doesn't seem like a very nice man to me.
Yeah, I'm like, he's speaking my language. Yeah. So, man, absolutely. This will not be the last time we get together. I've got some really fun ideas. I'll talk to you about here in a minute. For you guys that were here live and dealt with the little bit of babies, Mama's over there. She's chased the kids around for the last hour and a half. So we have to give a round of applause to Mama real quick.
She's being a soldier. She deserves a medal.
Yes, she does deserve a medal. I can just I feel that she's gonna do some punishing here in a minute. People are grounded probably. Sugar. No, that's the beautiful thing about having kids. You say controlled chaos. It's like you're gonna attempt to control the chaos.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen though.
But, anyway, thank you guys for being here live, and love you all, of course. Thank you always for being here and the wonderful comments and questions. And for those who watch it on replay, you're gonna have a great time because I can't wait to watch it on replay. And oftentimes I hate seeing me, and
I get what you mean.
So I have to look when my next scheduled interview is.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible at that. I'll get to you guys on Twitter. But until next time, like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube BS. It helps me and the authors I have on. And until next time, y'all have a wonderful day, night, evening, wherever you're at. We'll see you next time.